Tonight, a clock stopped at 2:17 a.m. inside a secret hangar. Engineers said it was a glitch. But the cameras showed something else. A ring-shaped engine turned on with no flame, only a low hum, like a power line in a storm. That moment, red dust fell out of empty air and scattered across the floor. The dust was tested. It matched Mars. The team made a claim that sounds like a dare, a rocket that can reach the red planet in 30 days. But this story does not start with a brand new idea. It starts with a file from the 1950s, a lost patent, and a warning written. In pencil, do not run it twice. So what did they wake up at 2:17 a.m.? And why does the clock refuse to move when the engine sings? The hangar sits far from the highway, past dry bushes and a fence that leans. The wind moves dust into thin lines on the concrete. At night, the building glows from inside like a lantern. Cameras watch everything. Guard writes the same note. In his log, silence at 2:16, hum at 2:17. Inside, the rocket waits under a black tarp. It is not tall like a tower. It is long, smooth, and quiet, like a silver needle on its side. The nose cone is matte. The skin shows tiny ripples, and the center holds a ring that looks like polished obsidian. The ring is the engine. Engineers call it the transit. They do not agree on the physics, but they agree on the numbers. If it holds a steady push, the ship can cross the space to Mars in 30 days. Not a guess, a plan. The test board shows lines of green. Someone wrote, "Window opens in 9 weeks." The narrator is allowed inside for one reason: to film a history piece about impossible projects that almost worked. He wears a badge that says visitor. He keeps his camera low. He notices little things that feel wrong. The floor is warm near the ring, but cold at the edges. Tiny droplets hang in the air and do not fall fast, as if the room is thicker near the engine. A technician rubs his arm and laughs, but his laugh sounds tight. Another keeps looking at the wall clock. Every time the ring makes a soft pop, the second hand stutters. The head engineer, Reeves, says it is just interference. He speaks without blinking. He asks the narrator to stand behind a yellow line. They remove the tarp. The transit ring is black and full of stars. It's not paint, not lights, just a depth that tricks the eye. The narrator walks around it. The blackness shifts and shows faint. Dots like a night sky. He thinks it is a surface coating, thinks it is a reflection. He stops thinking when cold fog crawls along the floor, then rises in a thin column and disappears into the ring like steam going down a drain. The nearest engineer, a woman named Ari, whispers, "Don't stare." It looks back. She is joking, maybe. A buzzer sounds. The ring warms. There is no flame. There is only a hum that grows until his teeth feel it. The air smells like rain before. A storm, metal, and ozone. Lights dim and then return. A camera clicks by itself. The narrator watches the clock. The second hand moves, stops, moves again. Dust falls from nowhere, like someone shook a rug in the sky. Red dust, grainy, dry. He looks around for a bag with powder or a trick. He finds none. Ari scoops a pinch into a sample jar and seals it. She does not look up when Reeves says, "Mark it." 2:17. The team sends the red dust to a lab across the base. Results come back the same night. The chemistry fits Martian soil, perchlorates iron oxide, a signature that should not be here. Reeves orders silence. The narrator keeps filming. He captures the clock, the fog, the dust. He asks for an explanation. He gets a rule: no questions after midnight. The hum of the ring fades. The clock jumps forward 3 seconds in one twitch. The guard writes his note again. The narrator stands in the doorway and wonders why the air feels lighter beside the engine and heavy near the exit. Like the room does not want him to leave. Out on the sand, the wind erases tracks in minutes. A coyote crosses the road and looks back at the glowing hangar. The narrator looks back too. He sees the black ring, uncovered now, and a thin swirl in its center like dust devils on a summer road. Thinks about the title of his show almost. Impossible, he says the words under his breath and does not believe them. In the distance, a red blink on a tower counts time. Inside, the wall clock ticks, then sticks, then ticks again. The note in pencil from long ago will appear tomorrow. But for now, the night keeps a question. If red dust can fall into this room, what else can fall out? Morning brings a brown folder with creased edges. Comes from a locked drawer that smells like paper and oil. Ari finds it because she is hunting for old test logs. Inside the folder is a copy of a patent application dated 1957. The pages are thin. The title says Transit Device for High-Efficiency Space Travel. The diagram shows a ring, simple lines, arrows, and a note that says Field Gradient in shaky letters. The name on the patent is blacked out in heavy ink. The last page, there is a pencil sentence written sideways. Do not run it twice. No date. No signature. The narrator holds the page and feels the grooves of the pencil. He asks Reeves about it.
How?
Reeves says old engineers wrote dramatic notes all the time. He smiles in a way that does not reach his eyes. He suggests the pencil. Warning was a joke. Ari does not laugh. She points to the test numbers in the margins. They match the modern readouts within a tiny range. How could a 1957 draft match a 2025 board? Reeves shrugs and tells her to focus on today's test procedure. The narrator takes a photo of the note. The photo comes out a little blurry around the word twice. The lab calls again. The red dust shows trapped gas bubbles that formed in low pressure. It also shows tiny glass beads, like what sand makes when it melts and cools fast. That can happen in lightning strikes. It can also happen when a small piece of rock flies through air very, very fast. It is odd to see both in the same pinch of soil. The chemist asks if the sample came from a vacuum chamber exposure. Ari says no. The chemist suggests checking for contamination from a Mars chamber used for rover tests. There is no rover chamber on site. The chemist goes quiet, then asks to speak off the record. Reeves ends the call. The narrator studies the patent diagram. He traces the ring with his finger. The arrows point inward, but the math notes talk about pushing on the outside world. He asks a simple question. If you cannot throw the ship at Mars, can you throw space the other way? Ari says that is not how it works. Reeves says the math is above the narrator's pay grade. The narrator nods and keeps looking at the penciled line. He thinks about a rule from old machines. The second time you run them is the dangerous time, because the first run loosens all the parts you cannot see. At lunch, the team sits on folding chairs. The desert heat buzzes. Fly crawls on a paper cup and takes off. Someone mentions the 1957 date. Someone else mentions a rumor that the field effect was tested at a different base in the early 60s and shut down after a time anomaly. The word time makes people smile in a half-joking way. The smiles look thin. Narrator turns his camera off and asks Ari what she really thinks. She says the engine is not a flame. It is a shape. She says shapes are old magic. She does. Not like old magic inside a metal ring. At 2:16 a.m., the guard writes silence. At 2:17, the hum returns. The second run of the night begins. The clock sticks again, where dust falls again, this time mixed with 3 tiny pebbles that hit the floor with soft clicks. The pebbles are warm. One has a flat face with lines that look like ripples in dried mud. In a bright beam, the dust shows tiny sparkles like ground glass. Reeves orders the engine cut. The hum fades. The pebbles cool fast. The narrator reaches out and touches one. It leaves a rust mark on his finger. He smells iron and dry stone and something like burnt air. They bag the pebbles. Ari writes the time. Reeves writes a new rule on the whiteboard. No second run in a 24-hour window. He does not explain why. The narrator thinks of the pencil note again. He looks down at the floor. The red dust forms a faint arc, a curve like a track, as if something slid in from nowhere and stopped at the yellow line. He films the curve. He watches it in slow motion. The curve looks like the edge of a map, a coastline. He cannot place it. He saves the clip and names it warning. The folder goes back in the drawer. The hum leaves a ring in everyone's ears. Night returns to the desert. The hangar shuts its doors. The clock is reset. No one mentions that the security camera near the ceiling recorded a short burst of video with a timestamp from next Tuesday. It shows the same room, the same people, the same dust, but the ring is brighter, and there is a shadow inside it that moves like a person behind frosted glass. The clip lasts 3 seconds, then it goes black. The guard writes his usual line. The pencil warning sleeps, but not for long. What did the person in next Tuesday's video try to say? They name the test probe Ibis because the bird flies long on thin wings. The probe is small, the size of a motorcycle, with a belly full of sensors and a nose camera that blinks like an eye. The plan is simple. Roll Ibis under the ring. Give it a gentle push. Hold the transit field at a whisper, like a hand on a child's back. The probe should slide forward and park on a test stand. If the field is safe, they will scale up. The narrator films from behind the yellow line. He breathes through his mouth because the room smells like rain and hot pennies again. The countdown starts. Ari watches a tablet. Reeves stands by the master switch, a key that turns with a firm click. The ring gathers its soft darkness. The floor fog crawls. The clock shows 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 58 seconds, 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 59 seconds, then sticks. The hum rises. Ibis shakes like a dog. The wheels lift a hair and settle. Field at 1%, Ari says. Reeves nods. The narrator feels his heartbeat in his teeth. The ring looks deeper than before. A well with no bottom. The projector. Screen on the far wall shows a live feed from Ibis's nose camera. It sees the ring. It sees the world bend at the center like a heat mirage. Push, Reeves says. Ari taps. Ibis rolls. The nose camera shows black, then stars, then black again. The data panel on the sidewall begins to print numbers. Outside temperature drop, inside temperature rise, pressure wobble. The probe's radio clicks like a Geiger counter. Hold, Reeves says. Ari holds the field steady. Ibis slides through. The ring and stops on the stand. The room breathes. The hum softens. The narrator lowers his camera and exhales. On the screen, the nose camera shows the hangar again. Then it shows dust that is not from the hangar floor. Fine red dust on the lens, blown by a wind that does not exist in the room. They clean the lens and freeze the frame. The dust grains have shapes like Mars pictures from textbooks. The chem lab will confirm it later, but everyone knows now. The ring does not move objects the way a forklift moves a crate. It moves edges. It lets the probe touch a place that is not here. Reeves orders a second push to see how far the edge goes. Ari looks at the whiteboard rule. Reeves looks at the clock. It is still 2:17. He says the rule refers to full power, not a gentle nudge. Ari does not argue. She taps again. The second push is stronger. Ibis slides deeper into the ring. The nose camera shows a horizon, low and flat. Sky's orange and gray. The ground looks like broken pottery. There's a white glint far away, like sun on ice. The feed stutters. The room goes silent. The hum climbs higher, then drops in a sudden step, like the sound fell downstairs. The clock twitches forward 2 seconds. Ari pulls power. Reeves says. The ring goes quiet. Ibis sits on the stand with a new coat of dust. The narrator realizes he is shaking. They wheel Ibis back. A tiny pebble falls from the body and chips the floor paint. The chip is the same shape as the curved dust mark from last night. The lab scrapes dust into jars. The samples steam a little when the lid opens, as if they came from a place too cold and too dry to like air. The chemist on the other end of the radio does not joke this time. He says, "Where did you get this?" Reeves says, "From an edge." The radio stays quiet. A second later, the projector pops and shows a new image. From the nose camera, it is not a live feed. It is a short, silent clip. In the clip, Ibis is outside on a red plain under a low sun. The shadow of the probe stretches long. Something moves past the lens. It is not clear. A line, a ridge. The clip is stamped with a time code, 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 4 seconds. But the camera says the file was created tomorrow. The clip ends before anyone can breathe. The screen goes dark. Ari checks the onboard memory. The file is there. It was not there 2 minutes ago. Reeves orders the memory pulled and sealed. He says they will not run a third push tonight. Guard writes a new line. Third run denied. The narrator stands next to Ibis and looks into the ring. He sees nothing. He feels the hair on his arms lift. He thinks about the word edge. Thinks about standing at a cliff with fog. Below, he asks himself a question that he does not say out loud. What happens when someone steps off? 2 nights later, the hangar is colder than the desert. AC pumps hard to keep the ring stable. The team wears jackets over their suits. The narrator sets his camera on a tripod and checks the angle. Reeves is different tonight. His voice is calm, but he stands too straight. Ari looks exhausted and sharp at the same time. There is a new person at the back wall. He is old, with a clean shave and a hat that does not fit the room. He says his name is Hafford. He does not say his job, but he does not need to. He watches like someone who counts outcomes for a living. They power the ring to 5%. Becomes a note steady and low. The lights hold. The clock holds, for now. Ibis is parked far away. This is not a probe night. Reeves wants to measure the field alone. He wants to show it is safe. Narrator thinks this is for Hafford. The instruments show a strange thing. The air near the ring grows heavy, like the barometer climbed, but the pressure reading does not change. The floor fog forms a neat spiral and stops, as if it reached a step and could not climb. Ari writes, spiral stop at 2.4 meters. Reeves nods. Edge confirmed, he says. Then the edge moves. It slides toward them like a tide. The spiral of fog shifts and unrolls. The heavy air walks across the floor. The clock clicks forward, and then back. A thing clocks do not do. The narrator feels dizzy. Ari says, cut. Reeves waits. Halford says nothing. The hum wobbles for 1 second. In that second, the projector shows a frame that no one understands until later. Shows the room from a different angle, as if a second projector is watching them from the ring. In the frame, someone is standing too close to the edge. The shape is human. The head looks toward the camera, then away, then steps. A scream pulls everyone back. It is not loud. It is the kind of scream a person makes when hot water hits a cold hand. A technician named Miguel is on the wrong side of the yellow line. He did not cross it. The line crossed him. A tide of heavy air moved the edge to his shoes. He reaches out without thinking, and his hand touches the thin part of the world. The ring darkens like a cloud passed over the moon. A hum drops and climbs. Reeves hits cut. The lights flick. The clock jumps forward for seconds. The heavy air pulls back. Miguel is on the floor, holding his hand to his chest. His glove is intact. His hand is not burned. But when he moves, the floor shows a new mark where his shadow was during the wobble. The shadow does not change with the overhead light. It stays dark, as if someone painted a person on the concrete. Halford steps around it. He looks down then. Up. Seal it, he says. Reeves nods. Everyone backs away. The narrator films without moving. He zooms in on the shadow. It is not a flat shape. It has depth like a puddle at night. It reflects the ring, not the lights. Miguel whispers. Felt wind, but it came from the wrong side. They build a frame over the shadow and place caution tape. Ari writes a new rule on the whiteboard. Edges move. Reeves writes another. No humans near edge. Halford writes nothing. He picks up the old patent folder and flips to the pencil note. He reads it twice, then looks at the ring and says, who ran it twice before? No one answers. The narrator sees the projector flicker and catches a single still on the backup feed. The still shows Miguel's shadow from the other side, as if the puddle had a mirror world that looked back. In that mirror, the hangar is the same, but the clock reads a different time. It says 2:16. They test the shadow with a light on a stick. The light bends near the edge and makes a small rainbow that slips sideways and vanishes. Ari's voice stays level when she says, we are not bending space. We are bending the map that space sits on. Reeves says, we can hold us straight. Line for 30 days. That is all we need. Halford says, it is not all you need. He looks at the ring like a judge. The narrator films the shadow and wonders if the puddle leads to a place where a person could go and come back with dust. On their boots, he wonders who will try first. He wonders if they already did, and if the pencil note was their only message home. The window opens in 9 weeks, then 8, then 6. The team sleeps in shifts. The narrator learns the sound of the ring in his bones. Can tell 1% from 5 by the way the air touches his teeth. Reeves builds a case that the transit field can hold a low, steady push on the ship without tearing edges. Ari designs a cage around the ring to keep people away. Miguel returns with a bandage and dry humor. He avoids the puddle. Halford stays and does not smile. He brings a short list of demands. A second ship on standby. A duplicate ring in storage. And a plan for when the map of space
That moves under them like ice on a river.
They test a full-scale engine on a static stand outside. The desert watches. The ring hums. The stand shakes. The sand near the legs forms neat ripples that run toward the ring and stop at an invisible line. Birds avoid the sky above the test pad. The narrator films a hawk that turns away as if it hit a window in clear air. The ring pulls a thin fog out of nowhere. The fog flows toward the center and vanishes. Die. The team cheers at the force reading. It is small, but it never changes. A steady push is a miracle in space. Push for 30 days. Flip. Push for 30 more. Reach Mars fast and gentle, with the crew awake and the ship quiet. The night after the outdoor test. The old camera in the hangar records something new. A drip of darkness falls from the ring and hits the floor near the puddle. It bounces like a drop of water, but leaves no mark. It evaporates into a soot-smelling cloud and fades. Ari watches the video 3 times. She says, "We are leaking." Reeves says, "We are learning." Halford says, "We are trading." The word sits in the air. Trading with what? With where? Narrator writes it down. The pencil snaps at the word what. They choose the crew for the first 30-day transit test. No people. Ibis will ride inside a small capsule with a clock, a compass, and a strip of paper that says hello in bold letters. The capsule is not sealed tight. It breathes like a lung. If it returns with dust, the dust can leave. If it returns with something else, the something else can breathe too. Reeves does not say that out loud. He knows the audience will hear it anyway. Launch night comes, stark, cold, and dry. The capsule sits under the ring. The ring hums. The clock sticks. Projector shows. The capsule camera, a simple view, the ring, then the hangar ceiling, then the ring again as the view swings. Ari counts down. Push. The capsule slides forward and slips through the black. The hum deepens. The projector shows nothing. The room breathes. 30 seconds. 1 minute. 5. The hum stays steady. The narrator feels the time move like a heavy train. He glances at the puddle shadow. It quivers. The clock clicks forward, back forward. The hum holds. Reeves whispers, "Hold the line." 10 minutes. The projector blinks. The capsule camera returns with a view of a flat red plain. The sky is thin and pale. Small rock sits near the lens and looks like a skull without eyes. The strip of paper with hello flutters and sticks to a bolt. The compass spins and stops. The clock shows to 17. Everything shows to 17. The capsule camera tilts and catches. A distant white shape like a ridge. The feed freezes. The hum steps up, then down. Ari pulls power. The room exhales. The capsule does not come back. They wait on. Hour. The projector stays black. The ring cools. Reeves says, "Next phase." Halford says, "Open the door." They open the hangar door to let the cool night in. A breeze blows sand across the threshold. The narrator steps outside and looks up. The stars feel closer. He has a sudden sense that the space above him is a map printed on thin plastic, and someone is pulling it tight. He goes back inside. A small sound comes from the far corner. A metal ping. He turns. The capsule sits on the floor under the emergency shower, covered in red dust. The shower curtain moves like someone just ducked under it. No one is there. They rush to the capsule. Dust is cold to the touch, then warm, then cold again. The hello paper is gone. The camera has 3 new clips. The first shows the red plane. The second shows the same plane with a set of marks that look like 3 long toes pressed into the dust. The third shows the hangar, but empty of people. The timestamp says next week. Reeves seals the capsule. Halford says nothing for a long time. When he speaks, his voice is slow. 30 days is not the strange part, he says. The strange part is what comes back changed during the wait. They make the ship ready. It is not a tower with thunder. It is a long needle with a ring caged in the middle and tanks wrapped around like ribs. The crew seats are simple. The ship needs no heavy shield, no huge flame. It needs patience and a steady push. The launch is not a blast. It is a release. The ship lifts slow from its cradle like a balloon that forgot how to float and is learning. Again, the ground crews clap because nothing shakes. The dogs at the fence do not bark. The ship rises into a sky that looks too soft for history. The narrator watches screens in the control room. He sees the ring glow, a shade darker than black. He sees the floor of the hangar reflected in it, even though the ship is far away now. He sees Reeves' hands on the console, careful and calm. Reeves stands with his fingers pressed to the glass. Halford sits with his hat on his knee. The room lights are low. The clock is, of course, 2:17. The ship clears the atmosphere. The ring hums at a note that makes the window glass buzz. Steady push begins. On day 1, the ship drifts like a leaf on a slow river, with the ring as the current. On day 3, the stars on the ship's camera look slightly wrong. Constellations bend, like soft wire. The navigation software complains, then adapts, then stops complaining, as if it learned a new sky. On day 5, the crew hears a wind. There is no air out there. They hear it anyway. A thin rush around their helmets when they sleep. They report. Reeves tells them to mark the time. It is 2:17 on the cabin clock. The crew expects jokes by now. No one jokes. On day 9, the ship passes a spot in space that shows dust motes floating like snow, even though there is no dust. The camera sees small sparks pop and vanish. The crew feels colder on one side of the cabin, like a window is open, but nothing leaks. The ring's hum adds a second, higher tone. Ari calls it a harmony. The ship's medical monitor catches small jumps in heartbeats that line up with the tone. The crew rests. The hum sings. The river holds them. On day 15, they receive a packet of data that they sent yesterday, returns with a new header that no one coded. The header is a set of coordinates that do not fit the map. If plotted, the numbers draw a curve that looks like the dust arc on the hangar floor. The curve ends at a point labeled with a single word, home. Ari stares at the curve until her eyes water. Reeves says, "Keep course." Halford says, "Every river tries to return to the sea." The narrator does not know what to say on the voiceover. He says nothing. Somewhere between day 20 and day 21, time gets thin. The clocks drift more than the models allow. The stars look like wet ink dragged by a sleeve. The crew hears the wind again, and this time, a far sound like sand moving under a door. They see a flash on the forward camera. The flash shows a ridge of white in the distance, like ice under sunlight, flickers out. The telemetry calls it noise. The crew does not agree. They mark the time. 2:17. On day 27, the ship sees Mars as a red coin growing and bright. The push flips 4. Breaking, the hum inverts. The tone turns inside out. The river that ran forward now runs back through them. The crew feels a brief wait, a soft hand on the chest. Then a second wait, like a ghost of the first. The cabin clock stops and restarts at 2:17. Reeves grips the console. He whispers, "Hold." Halford closes his eyes and says something. The mic does not pick up. The ship settles into Mars orbit on day 30 with fuel to spare and a map that no one fully trusts. The camera shows a plain of broken stone and a line of white far off. The crew is ready to send down Ibis to a lander with better wheels and a louder voice. The narrator leans into his mic. He speaks slowly. "They did it," he says. "The river they took does not look like the one on our maps." Stops. On a screen, a new message appears from the ship. It is a picture of the hangar at night. The ring is silent. The clock reads 2:17. The caption says in the crew's typed font, "We are home." The first orbit passes over canyons that look like scratches on red skin. The second shows a flat plain with ripples like a beach at low tide. The third passes the white ridge seen in the flashes. It is not ice. It is not rock. Not as we know. It is a long curve of something pale and smooth, like bone. The word is wrong, but the image sticks. The crew sends close shots. The surface is pores and layers and faint rings like a shell. The lander's camera counts tiny holes that run in lines like old roads. The lines point toward a dark patch. The dark patch is a circle, blacker than a shadow, and very, very familiar. It looks like the ring. The crew holds position. The lander hovers. The black circle on the ground does not reflect light. It swallows it gently, not like a hole, but like a throat. The edges of the circle show marks like fingerprints pressed into clay. The marks match the pattern of the ripples in the hangar fog spiral. The narrator speaks softer now. He uses short words, because big words fall apart here. "They found a door," he says. Or a mirror. The lander lowers a probe on a line. The line goes slack near the circle, like it crossed a lip. The camera sees nothing. The audio records a low hum that feels like a memory of thunder. The probe touches something. The lander shakes a little, then steadies. The crew pulls the probe back up, comes back with dust, white dust that melts when the lander warms up. Not ice, but something that acts like ice when you do not look too hard. The sensor reads a smell like ozone and old stone. The crew marks the time. The clock says 2:17, because of course it does. Back in the desert, the hangar is not empty. The puddle shadow still sits inside its frame. The old patent folder lies open on the table. The pencil note looks darker. The security camera near the ceiling blinks and records a short clip. In the clip, the hangar lights are off. The ring is covered. The puddle ripples once, like a drop, fell into it. Then the room is still. The timestamp says the clip came from the night the ship reached Mars orbit. The guard prints the clip and tapes it to the wall. He does not look at it again. The crew sends one last image before the lander descends. It shows the horizon near the white ridge. On that horizon, there is a thin thing that could be a standing stone or a machine. It casts a shadow that points at the lander like a finger. The shadow moves a little while the sun does not. The narrator breathes in. He thinks of the word trading again, thinks about doors that open both ways, thinks about a rule. He did not write on any whiteboard. If you find a mirror in a place it does not belong, do not break it. It will cut the map that holds you. They drop the lander, touches down near the circle. The dust kicks up and then falls in slow tinsel lines, straight and thin. The lander's leg sinks a little and stops. The camera pans. It shows the black circle up close. At the edge, the dust forms tiny dunes that point in. The lander extends a small arm with a brush. The brush touches the edge and comes back with nothing, as if it brushed air. Then the circle stirs. Calm wave moves across it like wind over a field of grain. It stops. The audio hum changes key. The narrator's skin goes cold. Watches a single grain of red dust rise from the circle and hang in the air. On the ship, the crew reports a sound like a voice at the edge of hearing. It is not words. It is the shape of words. Ari presses her headphones tight. Reeves looks at the ground as if listening with his feet. Halford leans forward and does not move. Sound fades. The lander transmits one last frame, the hello paper. The one that vanished from the capsule, lying on the red ground at the circle's edge. The letters face down. A faint new line is written on the back in pencil. The camera can just see it. It says, "Do not run it twice." The transmission ends. The hum in the control room stops. The hangar clock miles away ticks once and finally moves to 2:18. A guard looks up, startled, then writes a new line in the log. The narrator closes his eyes. He understands that the river they took to Mars is not just a path. It is a loop that touches different parts of the map at the same time. It is a trade route. He opens his eyes and reads the pencil line again on a printed still. He asks a last quiet question for the audience and for himself. If we can reach Mars in 30 days, what can reach us in one?